Former Venezuelan presidential candidate Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia left the country and requests political asylum in Spain. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan calls on Islamic countries to unite against Israel's growing expansionist threat. And in Vietnam, at least 9 people lost their lives on Saturday due to the passage of Typhoon Yagi. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The former presidential candidate Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia, who has been a voluntary refugee in the embassy of the Kingdom of Spain in Caracas for several days, left the country and requested political asylum from that government. The opponent was facing 6 charges, including the publication and maintenance of an illegal web page which disseminated fraudulent results, in addition to other crimes such as instigation to disobey the law, usurpation of functions, and conspiracy. Gonzalez Urrutia left after Venezuela granted the due safe conducts for the sake of the political peace of the country in compliance with international legality. This conduct reaffirms the respect for the law that has prevailed in the actions of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela in the international community. In other news, Venezuela revoked the approval granted to Brazil to represent the interests of the Argentine Republic and its nationals in Venezuelan territory. In a statement, the Bolivarian Republic informed it had taken the decision to revoke immediately the approval granted to the government of the Federative Republic of Brazil to represent the interests of the Argentine Republic and its nationals in Venezuelan territory, as well as the custody of the premises of the diplomatic mission, including its assets and archives, as announced in the joint statement dated August 5, 2024. The statement added that the decision had been notified to the states concerned through diplomatic channels. The statement further explained that Venezuela is forced to take this decision based on the evidence of the use of the diplomatic mission's facilities for the planning of terrorist activities and assassination attempts against the constitutional president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, and against the Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, actions planned by the fugitive from Venezuelan justice who remain within them. The Executive Secretary of ALBA-TCP, Jorge Arriaza, rejected on Saturday statements made by the Secretary General of the OAS, Luis Almagro, regarding Venezuela's sovereign decision to revoke Brazil's approval to represent Argentina's interests. The Venezuelan Foreign Ministry informed that this approval was withdrawn due to evidence that the Argentine diplomatic missions in Caracas is used for assassination plots, specifically fugitives from justice remain there who have conceived from their destabilizing activities against President Nicolás Maduro and Vice President Delcy Rodriguez. Venezuela stressed in a clear message the inviolability of the premises of the diplomatic mission. And in Honduras, the National Congress unanimously approved a special budget of more than 1.4 billion lempiras, $60.2 million, for the 2024 elections. The President of the Congress, Luis Redondo, declared that the opinion of the budget will be sent to be published in the official newspaper, La Gaceta, on the morning of Sunday, September 8th, same day that it coincides with the official call for the primary and internal elections 2025. It's estimated that the budget will be destined to cover costs related to the electoral logistics. On March 9th, 2025, the Libre Nacional and Liberal parties will participate in the primaries, which are not mandatory and are prior to the general elections on November 2025. And Colombian President Gustavo Petro denounced on Saturday that a coup d'etat is advancing against his government. In his X account, Gustavo Petro stated that it is not acceptable that through a document from a consultation room of the Council of State, which has no binding force, the Electoral Council has removed him from the integral constitutional immunity that protects him. He goes on to say that the Constitution does not allow a purely administrative and political body, such as the Electoral Council, to pave the way to suspend the President from his function for an investigation of limits over which it had no competence other than the 30 days following the election. Petro affirmed that every step taken against the President and the Electoral Council constructs a coup d'etat. He asked how they complain about Venezuela and affirmed that in Colombia, a coup d'etat against the President is on the move. In Chile, thousands of people will march on Sunday, September 8th to pay homage to the victims of Augusto Pinochet's dictatorship. As is tradition, the demonstration will start at the Plaza de los Héroes on the Alameda Avenue and will pass by the Palacio de la Moneda and will travel several kilometers to the cemetery. This mobilization has the slogan, "Yesterday's impunity is cause of today's injustices." Reports show that the total number of victims of the Pinochet regime is over 40,000, including those executed, disappeared, tortured, and imprisoned. According to official data, during the 17 years of Augusto Pinochet's regime, the bodies of a total of 1,469 victims were never handed over. Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Israeli occupation forces carried out 3 massacres in the Gaza Strip in the past 24 hours, killing at least 33 Palestinians. According to medical sources, these actions also left more than 145 wounded. Health officials warned that both figures could be even higher, as many of the victims remain trapped under rubble of the infrastructure hit by the bombings due to Israeli obstructions to the entry of ambulances and civil defense teams. According to the latest health report, at least 40,000 Palestinians have been killed and another 94,000 injured since October 2023. When Israel's war on the Gaza Strip began. And Israeli occupation forces arrested at least 35 Palestinians in the West Bank, including former prisoners, in the past 2 days. A joint statement issued by organizations defending the rights of Palestinian prisoners revealed that detentions occur in most West Bank governorates. The statement further highlighted the ill treatment and threats against the detainees and their families, including on-site interrogations and the destruction of their homes. The organizations further denounced that these systematic arrest campaigns have become a central policy of the Israeli occupation, intensifying significantly since the beginning of the current aggression against Gaza. And Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan calls on Islamic countries to unite against Israel's growing expansionist threat. Erdogan claims that Israel intends to commit genocide in both the West Bank and Gaza, and that it will not stop but will target other countries in the region such as Lebanon and Syria. To prevent this, Turkey has taken steps to improve relations with Egypt and Syria in order to form an alliance against the growing threat. According to Erdogan, there is no Palestinian-Israeli war in Gaza, but a conflict between expansionist Zionism and Muslims defending their homeland. Likewise, the Turkish president points out that it is a very critical period and that Islamic countries must wake up as soon as possible, be aware of the danger, and increase their cooperation.
Aysenur Yagi has been murdered. So far, 41,000 innocent civilians have been murdered, 17,000 of whom were children. Israel is brutally attacking children, women, young and old people. They are shedding blood.
Erdogan also stated that efforts to strengthen ties with Egypt and Syria are aimed at counteracting the threat of Israeli expansionism.
The new steps we have taken with Egypt and Syria are aimed at creating an alliance against the growing threat of expansionism. All Islamic countries should also take a common stand against the Israeli occupation, of which it is uncertain when it will stop. We have made this demand from the very beginning. The only way to put an end to Israeli arrogance and state terrorism is the alliance of Islam.
At least 500,000 people rallied in Tel Aviv on Saturday to demand the resignation of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and urge him to stop delaying an agreement with the Palestinian resistance Hamas that would allow the safe and speedy return of hostages. The demonstrations were called by the Hostages Families Forum, together with other organizations, and during the protests in front of the headquarters of the armed forces, demonstrators chanted slogans such as "An unsigned agreement is a murderer." In addition to Tel Aviv, where 5 people were arrested, mass demonstrations were reported in various cities such as Jerusalem, Haifa, Rehovot, and among others. Several Middle East nations support the Palestinian cause and condemn Israel's attacks on the civilian population. Iranian spokesman Nasser Kanani states that the destruction caused to urban areas in Gaza and northern West Bank indicates that the Israeli regime is becoming desperate. Likewise, the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his counterpart of Egypt, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, called for an end to the hostilities in the Gaza Strip. On the other hand, Algeria's representative to the United Nations, Amar Ben-Jamin, denounced the generalized destruction of infrastructure in Gaza as a result of the genocide and ethnic cleansing campaign. In this regard, he has urged to take immediate actions to ensure compliance with the resolutions. Moving on to other news, in Kenya, the authorities reported on Saturday the number of children killed in a fire at an elementary school in Kiani, a town in the center of the African nation, rose to 21. According to a police report, the fire broke out shortly after midnight on Friday, September 6, in one of the dormitories where over 150 children aged 10 to 14 were sleeping. Government spokesman Isaac Mwara visited the boys' boarding school where the tragedy occurred and said that 17 students are unaccounted for and 13 others are being treated in hospitals in Yagi County. Meanwhile, Kenyan President William Ruto declared 3 days of mourning in honor of the deceased children, and he has pledged to mobilize all available resources to support the families of those affected. And the Director General of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, assured this Saturday from Port Sudan in eastern Sudan that they will continue to work to alleviate one of the worst humanitarian crises on the planet due to the war that began more than a year ago. Adhanom said in his X account that in Sudan, to reiterate WHO's commitment to alleviate the humanitarian and health challenges faced by millions of people across the country. He continues saying that they will continue to work together to address the many health challenges facing the country, such as widespread insecurity, massive displacement of people within and outside the borders of Sudan, floods, famine, and disease outbreaks, and ensure that they receive increased levels of international attention, resources, and response. And during his visit to Papua New Guinea, Pope Francis made an appeal against armament and the exploitation of the common home during the Mass celebrated in Port Moresby. In his speech, the Catholic leader asked for the strengthening of and union of the families of the region, as well as peace for the nations. At the same time, he rejected practices such as armament and the exploitation and contamination of planet Earth. The Supreme Pontiff made this appeal in the country, which is considered the third lung of the planet and which has suffered most from the effects of climate change. The Mass was attended by approximately 35,000 faithful who carried out local traditions such as the entrance procession of the concelebrants, an activity that was accompanied by music and dances of the region. And since 1967, September 8 is commemorated worldwide as the International Literacy Day to remember the critical importance of literacy, a fundamental human right for everyone. According to UNESCO, it is estimated that at least 773 million young people and adults worldwide still do not know how to read and write, and that 250 million children do not develop the basic skills of calculation, reading, and writing. In fact, goal number 4 of the 2030 Agenda seeks to ensure that all young people learn to read and write and have basic numeracy skills, as well as to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and to promote lifelong learning opportunities for everyone. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back. In Mexico, authorities report landslides on highways due to heavy rains in the state of Querétaro. Querétaro State Civil Protection Agency reported a collapsed Federal Highway 120 in San Juan del Rio Xilitla in the municipality of Pinal de Amoles. They say there were no fatalities, but they have urged drivers to take alternate routes to avoid any landslide-related accidents. They also reported that the crews operating machinery are working in the area on the removal of soil for a prompt resumption of traffic. In Vietnam, at least 9 people lost their lives on Saturday due to the passage of Typhoon Yagi, considered the most powerful typhoon recorded in Asia so far in 2024. The casualties were located in the territory's northern provinces of Quang Ninh, Haiphong, and Haiduong, where at least 187 people were also reported injured, mostly due to falling trees and debris. The Vietnamese government evacuated more than 50,000 people from high-risk areas and mobilized nearly 500,000 soldiers for the rescue and recovery efforts. Moreover, Typhoon Yagi left 22 people dead between China and the Philippines, although in the latter country, in addition to the death, 26 people were reported missing and 22 injured. Moving to Brazil, smoke from the fires in the Amazon, Cerrado and Pantanal reached the southern and southeastern states of the country on Saturday, substantially altering the air quality in Rio Grande do Sul, where a large amount of particulate matter was recorded. According to satellite information, the smoke from the fires also affected the states of Santa Catarina and Paraná, as well as the cities of Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. The data obtained in the measurement show that air quality index in the localities of Pelotas and Uruguaina is acceptable in Porto Alegre, Santa Maria, São Luís Gonzaga, Santa Cruz do Sul, Cruz Alta, Caxias do Sul, and Passo Fundo. The air quality index exceeds the acceptable values. The Bolivian government declared a national emergency due to multiple fires in its territory that have already consumed more than 3 million hectares of land. The emergency teams reported that they are working to put out the fire that so far consumed 3.8 million hectares nationwide, with 72 active fire points where national parks are affected. The government emphasized the emergency measure will allow a more dynamic interministerial work in coordination with the governorates, the municipalities, and all the institutions that have to do with the support to the fire extinguishing and healthcare.
This fire behavior, as has been mentioned now, has moved to a new stage. Before, we had specific fires that are joining and forming complexes, forest fire complexes. We have identified 72 points that are joining and forming these complexes that form lines of fire and much longer extensions. Currently, we have 10 fire complexes that are identified mainly in the department of Santa Cruz to the north.
Mr. Allen declared that of the 3.8 million hectares affected by the fire, a total of 1.5 million are forested areas.
We have 1.5 million hectares that have been affected to forested areas. We have 2.3 million hectares that have been identified in grassland areas. To date, adding grassland areas and forested areas that have been affected by fire, we have 3.8 million hectares that have been affected.
Algeria held this Saturday a presidential election marked by a reduced participation, with the current head of state, Abdelmajid Tebboune, as favored candidate. Tebboune is confident of winning a second term in office after promising economic improvements. The results of the elections, with more than 24 million people summoned but with a participation of less than 50%, are expected Sunday, September 8th. The current president faces two relatively unknown rivals. One of them is Abdalali Hassani, leader of the movement Society for Peace. The other is Youssef Aouchiche, leader of the Socialist Forces Front. In the middle of a campaign that has generated little popular enthusiasm, the three candidates have focused their discourse on socio-economic issues. And every September 8th, since 1958, International Journalists' Day is commemorated in honor of the Czechoslovakian writer and journalist Julius Fučík, who was executed by the Nazis in 1943. This date is meant to highlight the importance of journalism in the search for truth, as well as to remember those who lost their lives in the exercise of this profession. In 1958, it was decided during the 4th Congress of the International Organization of Journalists to pay tribute with this date to Julius Fučík, arrested on several occasions by the Nazis due to his militancy and writings in favor of communism and against fascism. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.